are, oh, there goes the recording in progress. Okay, I have to hit that. Commissioners present are John Freeman, Kevin Reedy, and Catherine Hunt. Did I miss anybody?
Nope.
No. Okay, great. Today, the commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 29, 2023 amendment, extending the suspension of these provisions until March 31st, 2025. We are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the South End Landmark District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All further conversations it should be among commissioners, should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has adjourned. Are there any media or elected officials currently present? If so, raise your hand using the Zoom meeting platform and state your name, title, and affiliation. Do we see anyone?
No, I'm not seeing any.
No. Okay. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. Thank you. So, our agenda consists of design review, administrative review, review and discussion of revised standards and criteria, ratification of the meeting minutes, staff updates, and finally, adjournment. And we are ready for our first design application. It is 150 Chandler Street. The proposed work is to install a new deck. And I believe the representative for this application is Thomas Glynn. Are you here, Thomas? Do we have anyone for this application?
There are two raised hands.
Oh, now I see them. Thank you. Giuseppe.
Hello,
Giuseppe and
Good evening.
Tom's phone.
Yep.
Who
I'm
would
with
like to
SL
start?
House Group. So I'll be the representative for the design side of this project.
Okay, Giuseppe, go ahead. Rachel is moving the slides.
Yep. Yeah. Just let me know. I have your presentation here. Just let me know when you'd like me to go to the next slide.
And please just state your name for the record.
Oh, thanks, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening, of course. My name is Giuseppe Puglisi. Again, I'm the lead designer at SL House Group, representing the project here at 150 Chandler Street. This project pertains to the replacement of an existing leaking roof deck, with the emphasis of this meeting's presentation being that of a new composite IPE privacy screen to replace what I call the poorly aged existing one. In doing so, we are not changing or altering any of the existing brickwork, trim, or finishes, and are utilizing IPE shiplap at both sides of this new privacy screen, which allows for a durable composite finish that is not only a noticeable improvement to the existing privacy screen, but is more conducive to the historical vernacular, as I like to say, and integrity of the adjacent neighborhood. The IPE shiplap in question is not only easy to maintain and is commonly used in many Boston neighborhoods, as this was directly suggested by the Boston Building Department for this project, but is duly respectful to the adjacent architecture and presents a cohesive and balanced organic aesthetic between its natural warm tones and that of the earthen tones of the historical brick, of which, you know, we all know and love. This creates a subtle, natural contrast, as I like to call it, of organic distinction without overpowering the historical significance of said brick. And in doing so, it's not an entirely huge project, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions in relation to that. And as you can see, our presentation here solidifies that fact, and our effect to the existing building is minimal, to say the least. A lot of the existing brick, existing ceiling below, the EPDM flashing, all of that is remaining. And we're simply just replacing the extents of what is there um, with our new privacy screen and our new decking. And that concludes it.
Thanks, Giuseppe. Let's go to commissioners' questions and or comments. John Freeman, would you like to start?
Just a couple of quick questions. How tall is the mechanical unit, or does it go above the fence, or could it be possibly visible?
It is not visible either from the street. The privacy screen itself from the deck finish level is 3'9", and we clear that HVAC unit quite nicely.
Okay. And what are the boards of the privacy? Good night. What are the boards of the privacy fence made of? You mentioned a composite material a minute ago.
So we're going to be using IPE, which obviously the true IPE is a hardwood. We're using the composite form of it for the durability of it. On the outside, we're going to use a shiplap. So I should say the exterior of the privacy fence will have a 1/2-inch gap between the boards, of course shiplap, so you can't actually see through it. And then on the inside, we're going to use a 1/4-inch variety, and then we'll have a top rail to make it all cohesive within each other.
So I'm sorry, tell me again what the material is. I couldn't.
It's IPE. Some call it.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, yes, that's fine. I just didn't, I was having trouble understanding you and through the
I speak
cloud.
softly.
Okay, iPay is fine. iPay is how I've always pronounced it. Is that how do you pronounce it?
There's so many. I have some people that say IPE. Some people say IPE because of the hardwood. IPE might actually it is South African, so that might lend itself. I'm going to start calling it.
I've always heard iPay, but it doesn't matter. It's perfectly good material.
Well,
Okay, those are all my questions.
oh, good. As long as it's not IM pay.
I am back.
Couldn't
All right,
resist.
other chair.
Kevin, have you any comments or questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any comments or questions, so I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept this as presented. I think it's a perfectly good project. You say it's small, but anything that's nicely done is a good project.
Second.
Well, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Do we have any public comment? I guess I have to read this first. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Do we see anyone in attendance who has a comment or raised hand? Sarah or Rachel or Gabby, any emails received?
I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see any written public comment via email. Rachel, Gabby, did you see any?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay, great. Then I think we are ready for a vote. Mr. Freeman, how
Yes,
say you?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well, so application is approved. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming before us.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks a lot. The next application is for the location 1673 to 1675 Washington Street. The proposed work is to alter a storefront to include a new door and entryway. And Arthur Choo is representing this application. Arthur, are you here?
I am.
Excellent. Thank you. Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Arthur Choo. I'm an architect practicing at 1 Billings Road, Quincy, Mass.
Terrific. Would you like to go ahead with your presentation, Arthur?
Sure. I'm working for the landlord on this to get the door approved or an additional door approved. I think historically there was a door here because these are 2 separate buildings, and at some point, you can tell there was construction to recreate the storefront that exists today. So what we would like to do is go back and put another door there. The reason being is it used to be a dry cleaner that had both spaces on either side. The owner has leased out this side to a bakery and a baked food retail store, but the other side is not leased out at this time. So we need two doors, and we're looking to get another door put in on the 1679 side.
Can you show us the drawings?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the door is. I thought
Yeah. So
in the
it's-
middle.
Nope, those are the existing doors between, so it's on the right side. Yes. May I ask questions?
Oh, is that the extent of the presentation, Arthur?
I think pretty much so, because what it is I'm not the architect for the bakery, so they will probably be back with the signage, and any other changes they want to make. I'm representing the landlord that has to provide, the doorway, so I need to get the approval for the doorway, and you'll probably have to look at it again when
So
do the other parts.
just to clarify, Arthur, the place that was, or the space that was Andy's Cleaners, is that going to be the bakery?
Andy's Cleaners, I think, was on both sides.
Okay, but I mean the one on the left where it clearly had Andy's Cleaners name, you know, it was closer to the
Yes.
edge. So
And the
that's,
bakery-
go ahead.
And the bakery was, and the cleaner was also on the right side where I'm looking to put the new door. So that was the only door to the space for Andy's
Yeah.
Cleaners was on the left.
Yes,
But
okay.
they are two separate buildings, and so
Yeah.
historically, there must have been another door.
Well, are those doors in the middle there?
Those go upstairs to the apartments.
Oh, to the residential. Okay,
Yes.
yes. John, go ahead with your questions.
Well, you were asking the questions that I was going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I agree that there must have been another door, but it would be really good to have some more evidence on what that door could have been. Because, well, this doesn't look like a real a historic storefront door. Yeah, at least in what I can see of what's drawn here. And I don't know if you did the drawing, doesn't matter. So I think what we would really need is to see if there was any evidence. Have you been to the South End Historical Society? Have you been to photographs? I just went through Google and there isn't anything online that shows a door, as it only goes back to 2007 for this view.
Correct. We did find one historical photo, but there's a truck. I don't know if that's part of the presentation,
Oh,
in front of that
yeah.
area.
Can you
So
look
I
at the
assume-
construct? Have you been in here, Arthur?
Yes.
And is the construction, can you see any evidence of a door or other opening framed anywhere?
No, at some point, they must have redid the storefront. So it's contemporary. It may be 60 years old or say, but the storefront was rebuilt. So it's not an original storefront. It's been rebuilt at some time. And just to keep sympathetic with what's there, we modeled it after the door exists on the left side.
Well, that door you have, so I was going to ask you about the pilasters. On the corner and on each side of the existing doors, there's in your drawing, it looks like a paneled pilaster. Can we zoom in on that? And the picture below?
oh, you mean the photograph?
Well, sort of both at the same time.
Oh,
I guess that's not high enough resolution.
Right.
Okay, so actually see on the corner there to the left, the far corner. Oh, there we go. There's a pilaster. I thought on your drawings you were saying that was repeated next to the doors.
Yeah, I believe it is.
So is that something you're
Oh.
planning to do?
For the single door. No,
Rachel, who's controlling this?
Sorry, I am.
Can you drag it down so we can see the drawing as well?
Ooh,
Easier said than done, huh?
yeah, my computer is
it is not on the
freezing
drawing.
as I go.
So the drawing on the left, you have something that looks like the same pilaster as the corner on either side of the old bakery doors and in between on either side of the tenant doors. If that's, I mean, I would imagine that if there was another door, it was probably symmetrical to the one on the left, to the bakery doors, although it wouldn't have been that kind of door, and probably would have had the same kind of framing around it.
Okay,
It looks on the drawing like, I mean, it looks on the photograph like it's plain. It's not
right. I
detailed.
think right.
But my guess is it wasn't in the center. Did you have any evidence that it might have been originally in the center?
No.
Is it reasonable to ask for more information on this? I guess I'm asking staff
Okay, thank you.
or the other commissioner.
Well, is there an objection to the location that's being proposed, John, or what can we get through additional information?
It would be really nice to know where the doors were originally and how they were framed. But if we accepted it in this position, I would say it should have, this drawing should be corrected to represent the existing condition. And then that you should use the same kind of plane framed, call it whatever you want. I call it pilaster next to the door. And I would even say, if it looks like that the original storefront had a door where the bakery doors are because of the way unless there's evidence that this was all rebuilt, that we should do that. We should try to get back to what we think would be the original configuration. And I also wouldn't, so this is showing, is this door is recessed?
No.
Oh, it's in the front. Well, then I would say that the low rail, I don't know what you want to call that, a wainscot, or the storefront element should be continuous through the door, like all the other wood storefront, existing historic wood storefronts, rather than just inserting a contemporary door with full glass side lights there.
So John, may I ask, I guess this, originally, whenever this was built, do we think that it was completely symmetrical, that these two residential doors were there in the center, and then on either side, the retail space was symmetrical so that the doors were the same? Is this
that would be very typical, and probably yes. What that actually consisted of is the question, and that's why it'd be great, even if we can't see this entry for the truck, if we could see how the rest of it was built, is the corner and the two lights before you get to the bakery door, if that existed originally, that would be a great clue.
So this is one application. Then whoever the bakery person is going to come in and propose something? Is that what's going to happen here?
I believe that's what's going to happen.
What we could do is we could approve it in concept, because I absolutely agree there was some entry to this storefront. It wasn't a complete, Andy's Cleaners took over both sides. At some point, originally these were two different stores. So conceptually, I have no problem with adding a door. I just want to make sure we do it in the most, the closest, our charge is to have it be and as close to the original historic model as we can make it.
And that would have to hold for the next applicant for this bakery.
Well, so what we could do is approve it in concept.
Here's the
This is a
photo
What
bit-
do we got?
of,
I
here's the
can't
photo
see.
of
my
the
camera.
truck blocking it. It shows that the store, I mean, it shows that the storefront is altered. But
Yeah, okay, so this shows a center recessed.
Yes,
So the whole storefront's been altered.
yep.
All right.
So,
And so I would say I'm okay with it in the center based on this picture, but I'd like the details to be more in the historic model.
would you want it to look like what we see here?
Pilaster there.
I think there's a compromise in being close to what's existing. It's hard to tell in this photograph what the details are, but we can definitely see that it was center, and so it's the left side that's been altered. But if we return it to a center, it should be more in the detail of the. So you're adding a third kind of type here. Starting from the left, we have a pilaster that's detailed. Then we have two storefronts that are built to look like South End storefronts with the low rail, the low panels, and the panels above, which could be transom lights, but aren't in this case. Then we have a contemporary door that's a full glass door that's not a South End type of door, and is a double door to standard. Then we have the probably original or very similar to original tenant entries. And I now, having seen that, agree that the original door was probably in the center, so I'm okay with that. But rather than a contemporary full glass and full glass side lights, I'm saying we should have the storefront base and shelf in the same vocabulary all the way through. And what I'm saying is that we could approve it in concept in the center, so you get your approval, but wait for detail until the bakery comes in with everything else.
I want to give Kevin a chance to.
Yeah, That's, I'll
yeah.
shut up.
No, you didn't have to shut up, but I just
Yes,
want
you
to
do.
make sure Kevin has a chance to ask questions or comment.
What John said just now makes sense to me, approving in concept. Is that something that would then just go to staff, or would the applicant have to come back?
That would be staff's call.
Okay, I mean, I would be fine with deferring to staff and not requiring the applicant to come back if that.
I think that's great. I would agree with that if we make the proviso that it be in the detail, in the traditional detailing.
Yes.
So here's a question. It may not be appropriate for this time, but then the bakery people come in. Do we tell them they have to have a door in the center?
I think we just saw evidence that it probably was originally in the center.
Yes.
And I
Okay,
assume that since Arthur's here proposing it in the center, that that's where they want it.
good.
Is that correct,
I
Arthur?
believe so. I believe so.
I mean, if it isn't, you'll have to come back anyway.
So on that note, are we ready for a motion?
Kevin, you want to make it?
No, John, what you said about 60 seconds ago, I'll second, but go ahead.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve a new door to the future bakery bay located in the center, but with the proviso that the applicant come back either as the bakery or on themselves with the details to match the more traditional historic storefront that we see in the existing left side of the building.
I'll second, as long as it's clear that that's come back means come back to.
Staff.
Or they can go to staff, and staff can, it can be, if staff thinks it's fine, the staff can
Yep.
approve it, or they can
Right.
they always decide to bring it back to here.
Second.
Okay. So we'll go to public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussion. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc boston.gov. I do not see any indication of public comment.
No, I
So-
don't see any hands raised, and I don't believe that we received any written public comment.
Okay, very good. So we have the motion. It's been seconded. We shall vote on that. Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Reedy,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So the application is, well, we have an outcome. Let's put it that way. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Very good. This will be a good project.
Thank you.
Moving along to 10 Chandler Street. The proposed work is to demolish an existing building, build a new 3-story facility, and associated site improvements. The project will be phased to allow the Animal Rescue League to fully operate its shelter and veterinary services during construction. And Jonathan Garland is here, I believe.
That's right.
Jonathan, would you like to state your name fully for the record?
Yes, Jonathan Garland, JGE Architecture and Design.
Terrific, thank you. And would you like to go ahead with your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hunt, and good evening, everyone. Glad to be back with you as always.
Welcome.
Hopefully you can see my screen coming up.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm joined by a number of my colleagues here. Bob Baldwin, who is the owner's representative, as well as Dr. Edward Chatino and Alicia Pierce, who represent the Animal Rescue League and can speak or answer any questions about the operations day-to-day of the facility and the larger vision. My colleague at our office, Ashton Schlunt, who will speak for a brief moment today about the historical site context. And I was looking on to see if our landscape architect has made it on, Tracy. But in the event I'm not seeing her, I can sort of hit those points at a high level once we get to it.
Great.
So I'm going to jump right in. This is the development program that you can see on the slide. We are proposing a new construction 3-story, 30,500 square foot building for the new home of the Animal Rescue League. This is under the Article 80 Small Project Review application, and we are also considering this as a zoning as of right project and 25 surface parking spaces. This is the quick snapshot of the zoning, not that it is of much reference to you other than the idea that we are respecting building height, FAR, lot coverage, every single component of the zoning we look to comply with. The only thing we'll have to do by way of a formality is get approval on groundwater conservation overlay. I'll just take you through a series of existing photographs to make sure everyone is familiar with the existing building. It is a 2-story, rather long, I call it a bar building, that sits prominently along Chandler Street. There are a number of existing mature trees on the site, and so we've really tried to do a good job of engaging an arborist, working with the landscape architect to more or less nestle the new building amidst the existing trees. Trying to see where this next slide is. Oh, okay, it skipped ahead a bit. All right, so there I was there. I'll keep it at this screen level for now. This is a view from Chandler looking down the street. You can see the newly constructed Ellis Street playground straight ahead, and then the existing building to the right-hand side, sidewalks and parallel parking. This is a view going the opposite direction, looking down Chandler toward Berkeley Street. And there's an existing, office building here, the Pineapple, another large structure, and then we're here to the left. This is also showing the building frontage and some of the existing trees, a very low profile building, I would say, in terms of height. This is the current day condition of the brick sidewalks and granite curbs around the existing trees. We are planning to retain these existing trees, and then also looking to make sure that the streetscape here is a level walking surface at the end of the day. This is the Ellis Street Early Learning Playground, seen from both vantage points. The shot on the left is looking out to the Chandler Tremont Plaza and the Mass Pike infrastructure to the left. And then we also have the opposite direction to the right. A bit of a wider snapshot. You could see animal rescue here in the background. It's all fenced in, fully screened, and then these are the existing trees I was talking about that we are working within. And Tracy, I just saw join. We'll get into our limit of work area, what we're proposing in terms of streetscape improvements that we will commit to versus what is already in the public realm and we would like to work around. Another shot of the plaza from the corner. In this angle, you can see the beginnings of Tremont Street just before you head into Bay Village, and then to the right is Chandler Street. A bit more of a close-up of some of those tree pits. This is out in the public realm. This is not part of our site. A little bit further back, lots of brick out here in the plaza area. Turning around, looking toward the Bay Village neighborhood from the site. And then looking down Tremont Street, our site is right here to the right-hand side. And this is where we are proposing an emergency Boston Veterinary Care entrance into the property on the right. Bit more, just wider so you can see that whole context, but this is where what we're calling the BVC entrance would take place. We are looking to neck down this curb cut so it's not as wide and restore a lot of this sidewalk back to the public realm, which we think will be an enhancement. And then we're also doing a host of kind of curb appeal and streetscape improvements right in here. Just more of that. This is the current day open surface parking lot right on Tremont Street. So one of the big ideas is to replace this with a qualitative new construction building and really enhance the edge of Tremont Street as opposed to the surface lot that's currently there. This is around the private alley side of the building. It's not necessarily visible from a public street, so I'll kind of breeze through these, but this is essentially behind the building. The alleyway sort of wraps around an L shape. And then back to the beginning there. So that's the photographs. We can always revisit them as we go along. This is a map showing our section of the South End Landmark District, which in this diagram is bounded by the bold red line. Our site, as noted, is right on the edge of the district. So in many ways, we are the last thing you will see as you exit, or sometimes the first thing you will see as you enter the district.
Jonathan, excuse me for 1 second. I'd
Sure.
just like to say for the record that Commissioner Felicia Jacques has now joined the hearing.
Okay, welcome, Felicia. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
And also just to confirm our understanding that this project will be viewed as a Category B building, which is defined as a parcel or group of parcels, which is not abutted by an existing structure. Within this category, less strict conformity to existing neighborhood design will be required. I think we picked that up from the advisory meeting. So in terms of the approach here, this in many ways has to be viewed as a an emergency healthcare facility. It does operate, it does do surgeries, it does work with animals 24/7, and in some cases it's dire straits for some of the animals. So we do have to think of this as almost a hospital type facility or a critical care facility. So in that regard, we are proposing a scheme that allows us to keep the existing building fully operational while we build the new building to the right-hand side of the site. And that's just a core requirement of the programming. So the first step in that process is to remove the annex, which is located in this red box here, as well as 3 of these existing mature trees. And by doing that, that makes room for the new footprint as we're showing in this black dash line. Then once the new building is complete, we would be able to remove the existing building and then finish off with a host of streetscape improvements that Tracy can talk about. And before I hand it to her, I just wanted to highlight the ground floor plan of the building. One point to note is what we're calling a dual entry condition. So we do propose having a main entry from Chandler Street, which comes off of a parking lot for visitors or guests coming into the facility. And this would work for intake and adoption, or surrendering pets and adopting pets would come through this entrance, be greeted by reception. And there's a series of dog-related programs at the first floor. And then this entrance from Tremont works for the Boston Veterinary Care emergency access, where you come in, you take an elevator up to the third floor, and your animal can be treated, whether it's surgery or other types of care. Tracy, feel free to jump into the landscape. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. My name is Tracy Hudak. I'm with Kyle Zick Landscape Architecture. And so you can see on the right side of the screen is that the footprint of the building that Jonathan's been talking about. And so just to go over some of the big site moves, the parking area along Tremont, it would be decreased in size and provide 4 standard parking spaces and 1 ADA parking space. And there'd be a pedestrian access around the edge of the parking lot for folks coming along the sidewalk on Tremont and then being able to enter the vet building that way safely around the edge of the parking lot. On that streetscape, we're talking primarily about replacing in kind what is there, which is a concrete sidewalk with a brick furnishing zone, and then decreasing the size of the current driveway cut to sort of minimize the impact minimize the impact of that parking area and sort of maximize the pedestrian space. And then over on Chandler Street, so that where the bulk of the existing building would be removed, replacing that area with a number of outdoor open spaces, dog yards, and again, as Jonathan mentioned, the surface parking area, which would provide access to the building and as well as another accessible parking space. So this does introduce a vehicle entrance from Chandler, which currently does not exist and would necessitate the removal of a single tree, a small street tree that currently exists, but it does let us save a number of other mature trees. And again, that vehicle entrance driveway, the entry into there is minimized. So it's essentially a 1 car at a time driveway. We do have a number of buffer plantings planned to screen that parking area. And again, we want to take the mature trees that are currently there and situate those in open space. In some cases, they are currently now in sort of stone or gravel areas. And so the environment for those trees and the streetscape condition would be improved by creating more green space and replacing some of that hard surface. Along Chandler, from the alleyway to the main entrance of the building, we're proposing replacing the current brick sidewalk that is in poor condition with a concrete sidewalk with a brick furnishing zone, so similar to the existing condition on Tremont. And then after the building entrance, the area that would be between the building and the current Boston playground would be replaced and repaired with brick up to the corner point of the property line. So as I mentioned, so there's 1 small tree removal on Chandler that is a new-ish street tree. And then Jonathan had already mentioned the 3 trees that would be needed to be removed to implement the new building. There is a street tree on Tremont that we are keeping, an additional tree in that sort of Tremont area that we would be adding, and then 2 trees along the alleyway that would be added in this current scheme. And so here's the streetscape condition that is being proposed on Tremont. We meet the complete street guidelines, meet or exceed all of the the limits there to provide the furnishing and curb zone, the 8-foot pedestrian zone. And then again, you know, this is a cut through the parking area where you see there'd be the 3 spaces, and then a relatively generous area right next to the building where we can introduce a bit of planting to soften that entrance.
Oh, the slide doesn't want to show
It's
up.
stuck.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's like, hello. Try something.
While Jonathan fiddles with that, I think the next slide is the streetscape on Chandler. And it too meets the guideline requirements for complete streets for a, let's see, neighborhood residential street. So we have a 5-foot pedestrian zone and currently a furnishing and curb zone that is plus minus 4'9". It's a little bit wonky because of the sort of undulating curve on Chandler at the moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to save this. Sorry about that. Save this somewhere else, and hopefully that I can reopen it, and that will clean it up. See if this new version works. Okay. ditch this one.
Technology.
Yeah. Are you seeing it again?
The presentation, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Was
So
that
I just-
essentially the end of your part, Tracy?
I believe I have at least one more.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this last one here, right? You could see it.
Correct.
All right. Sorry about that.
And so this is a shot from our layout plan from the sort of DD level drawings that we have that's pointing out some of the features. So there's the parking lot again on Tremont with the pedestrian entrance that goes around the edge. The entrance at Chandler, the main entrance where there would be adoptions and surrenders, etc. That entrance, there's a rendering coming up later in the presentation for that. So I won't get into that too much, but essentially there's a sloped walkway providing an accessible route as well as a staircase and a planted bed just to kind of moderate the elevation change between those two. There is an existing tree that is currently in a walled condition, essentially a giant planter bed, and so we're going to maintain that and work to keep that tree. And then there's currently a statue that exists over on the east side of the property that we are proposing moves into this sort of turf area that would be fronting on Chandler. And as you move across, there's another 2 existing trees that we're going to keep and change their condition from sitting in gravel beds to sitting in vegetated beds. And there's also going to be the buffer planting around the 3 sides of the parking lot.
Yep. Thanks, Tracy. I just
Sure.
wanted to quickly show this to the commission as you were talking. This one might be easier to understand. This is that sort of elevated condition where if you are able to get up to some, through some steps, you would come in here, take a few steps to the main entry, or you could sweep around this sloped walk. if
Yeah,
you're in a
I can't
wheelchair.
see where you're pointing.
Oh,
Are you
can't
pointing?
see. Yes, the mouse here. I'm pointing to this.
Yeah,
zone
we're
here.
not seeing the pointing part.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You just drew that line.
Yeah, I just drew the
There we
paint.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that pink up here? This
Yeah.
pink-
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be kind of your accessible way up to the front door.
Now we can see it.
Yeah. And then the relocated statue, which I think is a fan favorite, it's right out on Tremont Plaza, would be relocated roughly to here on Chandler.
oh, wait, you're moving it from Tremont all the way over to Chandler?
That's what we're thinking about.
Oh.
Well, it's on
Oh.
it's on Tremont Plaza. It faces the park. Is that
Yes.
right, Jonathan?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yep.
Well,
Alright.
it's highly visible where it is.
All right, so we're going to keep.
Before
Oh, go
you
ahead.
leave that slide, Jonathan, can you go back to that?
Yes.
Am I crazy? I thought there were 2 vehicle entrances. Now there's only one on Chandler?
No, there are 2. There's
Where's
one.
the one on Tremont? I I don't
It's
get
right,
it.
it's right here. Well, that's a good, yeah, it's right here. It's on Chandler. You can see the curb
No,
cut.
no, I see it on Chandler, but where, can you point out on Tremont?
Yes, I am pointing. Can you see my cursor?
No,
Okay, let me draw a circle around it. This
I
is,
see this thing that looks like an angled entry, but then there's a note that says it's a dumpster.
no, can you see this
Oh,
pink
oh.
circle over here?
Pink circle. Yes, that's the vehicle entrance.
That's
Oh,
the
okay.
vehicle entrance from Tremont.
Oh, thank you.
This one
Okay.
here is the vehicle entrance from Chandler.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
And just if you're wondering, I mean, we went back and forth with the city a lot about the vehicle entrance on Chandler as to where it is. It really is due to the operations. We can't rely on the alleyway for any sort of ingress to the site or egress. The alleyway gets blocked at all random times of day and night with
Yeah.
people moving things in. It would really hamper the operations of the site to place it off of the alley.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So Ashton, I'm going to turn it to you to just talk through these two slides on historical context.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thanks.
Hey. Hey. So yeah, I took a kind of a deep dive into what the site consisted of prior to what is there today. Starting off looking as far back as I could, referencing some of the fire insurance maps and the Boston Bromley atlases, and found that the lot sat vacant as far as I could see from like 1874 to 1883, where this is just depicted as vacant. I do have some of these enlarged on the next slide as well, but this kind of timeline pieces it together. The first appearance of any construction on this site was cyclorama, which for anyone who may not know what a cyclorama is, it was considered an immersive experience between the 18 and 1900s, where they would showcase a very large painting displayed on an enormous circular structure, and it would present a 360-degree view of whatever scenes was presented. So in this case, it was of the Battle of Bunker Hill. Then this first appeared in 1884. It was originally constructed in Chicago, and Boston loved it so much that they wanted a replica of their own and had the same architect out of Chicago come here and build one. And this was actually the second cyclorama in the South End, just down the street. The original cyclorama was of the Battle of Gettysburg, and it still exists on the site today. It is just hidden. It's a kind of a hidden gem that you can see from above. And maybe if you go to the next slide, it might have a better images. You can see down on the bottom left is the original first cyclorama that exists down the street from our site, and the one above is the drawing of what the one on our site would have looked like.
So this aerial map here in the red is where our site is.
Yep. So, and then after a while, or not a very short while, for a couple of years after cycloramas kind of died down, the site became a riding school for horse training, and then later was reconstructed into the Castle Square Theater and Hotel, which ended up reusing the dome of the cyclorama and became a very famous location for all sorts of plays and shows, and brought in many people into Boston. But after some time, the theater became later known as the Arlington Street Theater, and they began showing projections of movies as it became a more popular medium before transitioning back into a theater. And later, the owners had sold off the furnishings, and the building became razed. And the site sat vacant shortly until the Animal Rescue League of Boston originally constructed the building that currently sits on the site today. And you can see here in the imagery, you can see the Castle Square Theater, what it would have looked like, some of the architectural elements at the front entry. And then I threw in the drawing aerial depicting where our site is in the red, where the original theater was, and the site in blue down the street is where the current Boston
Better for the audience.
Yes. Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. You're very familiar. And yeah, so So this is kind of where the site sits now with the current day Animal Rescue League.
Thanks, Ashton.
Mhm.
Couple of big takeaways here that strike me, at least if you look at this 1888 map, is that the site, originally from its existence of something being built, always feels like it's a little different, right, than your normal kind of row house or set of apartment buildings. It does have almost a theater in the round quality to the massing, the shape, and the uniqueness of the volume, being a fully circular volume. And then also just the way that it pulls up and fronts right on the edge of Chandler and Tremont is something that now we are coming back to. We are taking a building that's on Chandler and bringing it back to the edge corner of Chandler and Tremont. And it also has a curvilinear form and something that's a bit atypical from your typical kind of residential street, in the South End. So I think there's a lot of parallels between this history and what we're looking to do on the site today. This is, as we looked at the exterior design and began to come up with a materials palette, one of the first things we like to do is just get out to the neighborhood, take some walks with a camera, and almost create like a visual vocabulary of pieces we can pull from, whether it's, bricks of different tonality, the color of bays, bay windows, things like street signage even play a role, brick ornamentation, shutters, things that create depth, shadow, and composition. And then also we look at precedents of things that have been built historically in the South End, as well as some of the newer buildings, and see what we can pull from and draw from. This is 7 East Springfield. I'm sure you guys are intimately familiar, but just the idea of the strong kind of base and then a top material, and how there's, datum lines that have been struck across here, and how the building weaves into its context, but it also has a bit of a modern expression to it. 600 Harrison, which, like our site, is on the edge of the district as you're either entering or coming out. This project is one of the last ones close to Wareham Street as you're exiting the district. And so it has a really playful window arrangement, but you can still kind of read the strong sense of verticality and the more secondary sense of horizontality, in this sort of massing buildup. Not in the district, but something that I think we are drawing on or being inspired by is this the Tozzer Library at Harvard, which has obviously red brick, and it also has like an analogous standing seam metal composition and this playful arrangement of windows, but the windows are of a vertical proportion, this 1:3, 1:4 ratio, which we see very prevalent even in the South End. 566 Columbus, and this idea of dimensionality and modulation, breaking down the massing into bite-sized reasonable chunks and having a clear delineation of the base, middle, and top. Another idea about an object type building or a theater in the round. This is not in the district, but another one that we draw some parallels with. Similar scale and height, 3 large scale stories, curved linear, sweeping roof forms. This idea of the window breaking and going to the roof and seeing if that can, play a role and what that does in terms of being contextual, but also having something that's a little bit different. The Whitney Hotel in Boston, again, these acute curved linear forms, brick ornamentation and craft, and really highlighting the window. The Allen House, again, this idea of sweeping forms, smaller scale building, and how you have this, this gentle relationship between the two. And then 691 Mass Ave, which has strong verticals, a very kind of, rudimentary, almost slavish-like pattern of how these windows work. And you'll see later on how we're sort of marrying this idea with some ideas from 600 Harrison. Local references, like you can see on the left and right, curved linear forms, brick ornamentation and craft. The idea that you do see some ganged windows in the South End, and that's shown here with contrasting metal band materiality. The role of brick ornamentation in between windows, we're playing with some of that as well. And that kind of brings us to the palette or the kit of parts that's brought us to our current thinking with our proposal. ideas around what does it mean for a building that can be seen from multiple sides. We kind of call that visualized as a theater in the round. It's different than a typical South End project, which might have two infills and you're sort of really working with the space in between two buildings, whereas we have significant dimension between us and any neighboring abutter. Ornament and craft, how do we pull from some of the detailing in the district, whether it's bricks pulling out beyond the facade and creating playful shadows like this, or doing things that almost emulatively look at shutters that you can see in this image here. The prevalence of the grid in the townhouse, and that really brings about this stacked proportion of vertical splayed windows. In terms of a material palette, this is the compilation that we're proposing: composite metal, full depth red brick, brick articulation along the facade, an architectural masonry base that is contrasting and different than the second and third story, but also has a lot of parallels in terms of the tonality. And then punch windows. How do we get sort of a south end looking punch window within the massing? So this is our first rendering that shows you a view from Chandler Street, where you can see a rhythmic stacking of windows as well as some playfulness of the windows. And again, thinking about projects like 691 Mass Ave and projects like 600 Harrison, we see a lot of parallel between the two. And then we're adding in almost shutter-like quality to the windows, or side element-like quality to the windows with the way that these bricks push in and out. You can see them in probably better definition on the right-hand side. Given that it's an animal rescue league facility, we jokingly called them paw prints because they kind of look like little paw prints from the animals along the facade. And then we've tried to be very delicate and thoughtful about roof screening. We do, as I mentioned at the outset, this is a healthcare facility. Typically with healthcare facilities, you're looking at places that require lots of air changes, larger mechanical equipment. That's just a core requirement to the core functionality of the healthcare facility, not to mention all the fuzz, the fur, the other things that come with pets. So with that, we do have some mechanical equipment that has no other place to go but on the roof. But with that, we've been able to look at a upwards of 5 foot, or I should say maximum of 5 foot screen wall that you would only see 4 feet of, because the first foot is tucked behind the parapet and it would be set 3 feet back from the edge of the roof. And we're thinking about cladding it with a nice gray standing seam metal, which we've taken photographs of in the district to show you that that does exist at roof type conditions in the south end. But we think that that's the best way to deal with it, so you're not looking at equipment, and we have a consistent architectural solution for that. And then at the base, looking at an architectural masonry base that would be larger than brick, but would be masonry and give some warmth and definition as you ground the building. This is more a view set in the greater context with the full build out of the site and the landscape components that Tracy was going through. I think you'll see here we've upgraded the fence, so it's no longer the Boston fence. We are looking at the standard picket south end fence that would run around the property. And you can see how the building is nestled into the existing trees. This is a view taken from across Chandler Street. Close up, this is the main entrance with a couple of steps and ornamental handrail. And then if you're taking a wheelchair, you'd sort of cut right around this planter and be able to get up to this higher level. This tree is currently in a raised planter box, so we would need to keep it at that elevated height just to be able to retain the tree, because the roots have grown into that raised elevation. This is a view from the Chandler Tremont Plaza. Right behind us would be the walls to the Mass Pike overlook. And so you can see the curved linear forms of the building, reminded of some of the precedents we just walked through, and this idea of vertically stacking the windows, but also having some shifting going on. And just using those curved linear forms so that they provide like a sweeping effect, but they work really well with orthogonal line work as well, as you can see. Both at the top and at the bottom here. These are the trees that are within our property, and then as you move your eye to the left, outbound of the site, there are even more trees in the public plaza. Another view up close looking at the building, and you can see the multi-purpose room to the right-hand side and how that warm base material sort of comes up the facade and pushes in. So we have a break in the 3-story massing, and we're looking at more of a 1.5-story volume here to the side. Sweeping around to the Tremont Street side of the building, would be the main entry for the Boston Veterinary Care. And this is the curb cut that we were talking about from Tremont with the 5 surface parking spaces. And just having a simple ribbon of glass here that's bounded by the warm tone masonry is what we think will create a striking entry. Lights, visibility, signage will really draw that to be an entrance. And then applying more of that patternation in the brick, as you can see up above there. This is a view, I think, from the advisory. We were asked to do a view that stepped back and actually captured the building right next door. So that is, this is how that would look, the relationship together. Our building in height would be lower than the building to the left, but you can see that there is considerable distance between the two. It's not like they're touching, or any sort of close proximity. But we did think about, this line here, this major kind of precast element line striking a datum, and how might that datum talk with our change in material here. So if there was a line work, we would like to at least visually try to get in the realm of that datum, and then breaking that and going up with the additional 2 stories. And then how our mechanical penthouse might begin to talk to the mansard roof of this adjacent building. Looking at straight on elevations of the project, we can come back to these, but overall, there's a 12.5 foot datum between the ground plane and this second floor where the overhang happens. And then we would go up to a 45 foot height, and the penthouse mechanical screen would cap out around 50 feet. This is just a enlargement of that same elevation taken from Chandler Street. This is a shot from Tremont Street, and again, some of those datums I was pointing out. This is that precast line band of the adjacent building, and if you move your eye to the right, we're starting to pick up where that line happens, and then also at the top here, picking up the top of the penthouse with the top of the dormer that's there. This is an enlarged view of that from Tremont Street. A view of the main entrance. If you move your eye to the far left, this is the door that you would take for the intake or adoption. This piece here is just the poked out volume of the smaller multi-purpose element. Enlargement there. And finally, this is a view from the Chandler Tremont Plaza. So there would be a lot more mature trees out in the plaza. We took them off for visual clarity, but a lot of what I've already described you can see in this view. And then this is a view that's very screened by the trees. We anticipate that there will be a layering effect to how you envision the building from Chandler Tremont. In a full bloom day, you're likely to see it like this, with lots of existing trees more or less screening the building. But if you remove it for visual clarity, we do think that the building has a nice pedestrian scale. The relationship of people and the height of people to the first floor, and how we've struck this line, this very visual datum, really makes the building feel owned by the pedestrian, and not like it's just shooting up past the height of people. And then we think that there's a really soft application of the additional 2 stories on top of that first floor. Looking at the fenestration composition and cues, if we take this building and sort of dissect it a bit, you will see a very kind of just repetitive pattern of windows, which is what you see pretty prevalently throughout the south end, and a strong predominance of vertical, and a secondary visualization of the horizontal. That's why it's in the dash line form. And then if you sort of weave that in with 600 Harrison, which has a bit more of a playful rhythm, but you can still get that overarching vertical read. Even though windows are shifting left to right a bit, it still does read predominantly vertical, and a smaller secondary horizontal. We tend to think of ourselves as sort of a blending of both of those worlds, where you have, in some cases, a very stacked window, And in other cases, you do have a little bit of that play on the window like you saw at 600 Harrison. There was also a comment at the advisory about the cornice line. So this is showing kind of a snippet alteration. I can flip back and forth a few times, but if you move your eye to the top roof line, this is showing it without the metal band that continues straight up to the cornice and just allows brick to resolve that edge. And so in this case, we think this is a lot more consistent with the district. Not exactly as modern as maybe the rest of the building, but again, back toward where the district is, and it allows the horizontal to remain predominant at the cornice, which we see over and over, obviously, in the district. South end craft and detail articulation. So these are some examples that we were pulling from. Again, bricks pulling out, shutters, you know, and sort of all this ornamentation and craft, which really creates some of the most signature elements and moments within the South End. And how do we sort of incorporate those in a respectful way? Even on 600 Harrison, where you have two-tone metal panels next to windows, that can abstractly be seen as almost like shutter-like quality, where you have that additional supporting element to the side of a window. Or in this case, you have a ganged window feature, which you can see the metal panel betwixt the windows. And here you're seeing metal panel between the windows and playing off this idea of shutters. This image to the right, which is right along Berkeley Street, has a one-sided shutter as you go down these windows. So you can see the relationship with the brick and how that might start to appear almost like having that shutter-like quality. Or this other project in the South End where there's ornamentational brick within the bay of the window, seeing that relationship. Curved linear forms are also prevalent. So you can see at the Allen House, as well as two other buildings that are not in the district, but there are an abundance of curved linear forms in the district, and how we've sort of brought that into life on our project. The base material is all I want you to see from this project, zero Worcester. I'm not coming here talking about
Okay,
the whole building, just the base.
You know better.
I know better. just the base. So if you can look at it at the lower level, just this larger scale warm tone. We went right up to the edge of the building where your cheek is kind of hitting the side of the facade to get that sort of textural look of the material, but it is a concrete. It's a nice, deeply pigmented concrete, and that's something that we would propose for the base of our building that would contrast against the red brick above. Maybe not this exact color, but we are talking about this type of material with closed joints, as you can see here. Rooftop penthouse material with standing seam. We just went through the neighborhood and cataloged various instances where you do see standing seam metal as the appropriate, or I should say well-used material to screen penthouses and other types of mechanical equipment. And so we feel that we're staying fairly consistent with that use as we try to screen our mechanical equipment. Couple of views looking at the building, perhaps outside of the district, but still useful. I'll just kind of fly through them. I won't describe them all, but this is from Bay Village across the pike looking back at the building, very much within the band of the trees. So I really would say for most times out of the year, this building will not be seen in its full life as a building. It will always be seen through layers of trees. That's just the reality. This is a view from northbound along Tremont. This is down Chandler Street, relatively small in scale. And then this is our final image. So I'll stop here and turn it back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's excellent. And I especially want to thank Ashton for that historic background, which was fascinating.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
John Freeman, would you like to start out with comments and questions?
Will we do both at the same time?
Yep.
Okay, great. First, this is a great presentation to everybody, and Jonathan as well, but Ashton, that really was incredibly helpful. That was a very useful analysis, and thank you. We do all know what the Boston Center for the Arts is, but it was still helpful to show the two things and the relationship. And it did make me feel better about this site, because one of the things that I was worried about was the possible historic street front, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. Well, actually, why don't I do that now? So can you, if somebody were arriving with an injured pet, how do they know which entrance to go to?
I will let Edward speak to that from an operational standpoint, but
Well,
from
I'm more interested in a wayfinding standpoint.
I was just going to say, from an architectural standpoint, we absolutely will rely on signage, clear site signage along. As I mentioned before, we will have the south end steel picket rail out at the street edge. I think that infrastructure provides an opportunity for signage, very clear signage that talks about Boston Veterinary Care. I think also as you become a member of the vet, to take your animal, you will learn that that's where you come to. I'm sure that will be part of the orientation process. That's where you will come if you have an issue versus the other entrance. So I think it's partly signage and it's partly utilizing the membership function.
Okay, so I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lot more signage than are showing in the renderings, and that's we will ask you as part of the approval, assuming we approve it, to come back with a master signage plan. But I think that one of the things is going to be the site signage, because I can imagine somebody pulling into the Chandler Street entrance with an injured pet, and needing to have very big, clear signage that how to get around to the other side. I can imagine somebody coming down Fremont, in a panic, as I would be, and needing to see where that small entrance is that you've necked down. But I think there's also an opportunity there because I think some of the street line from the existing building could stand a stronger indication of a turn-in. It could be a pier with signs on it, or something consistent with the building design. So in both locations and between the two, if there is a way to think about that street front, even though your historic explanation convinced me that it didn't have to have that, something that improves the wayfinding for those, because you've got the split entry. Most people don't expect a building to have a split entry.
Right.
And even, a huge hospital building perhaps, but I think thinking about before you come back that opportunity, and think about the sign package and signage package for the whole building.
Sure.
Really great.
John, Edward wanted to inject something here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's
Please.
okay. No, I think he can add something to what you're.
Great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That was a great comment. We currently have we actually have 3 entrances to the building now. We have 2 of them on Chandler Street, one for the veterinary hospital, one for intake. And then we have the shelter adoption is mainly off of Chandler and Tremont. So we have actually 4 separate places. We make this designation on our website and when people call us. So currently people do get confused, but most of the signage is on the door itself, on the glass door, letting people know if they're coming for adoption, please use our Chandler Street entrance or vice versa. And very rarely do we have major mix-ups currently because of our website and our signage that's on the door itself, because it is a little confusing with all these entrances where exactly, depending on your needs, where do you go? As Jonathan mentioned, the veterinary hospital that's used for the public for most emergencies is off of Tremont Street. So that one would be on our website and what people would tell you when you call, what parking lot you would park in and what entrance you would go to. But the signage was a wonderful comment, but we currently manage that now with very few signage, wayfinding signs, except for it's on the door itself.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. And if you can continue to do that, that's great. I think all I'm asking is that in the signage package, you at least think about what if we start to need this? So you're not back here asking to change your master signage plan. And then you don't have to install it. It turns out everybody knows this building because it's so famous and popular, exciting.
But John makes a very good point. That master plan is going to it's going to be very important.
Okay.
I think, so I want to say also, I loved your facade evaluation. That hierarchy of directions is something we've talked about on this commission for more years than I'd care to admit. And you did a really wonderful evaluation of it and why it works and why it's part of the South End vocabulary. I like your cornice change. I do understand that makes it not, you think it makes it not as contemporary, but I think in fact it enhances it, and that the punched openings are stronger because of it. So I really like that change. Then the last thing I'm gonna I'm deciding whether I want to ask about brick sidewalks, but I think I'm going to say that.
Go ahead, because I want to also.
I'll let you do that.
Oh, okay.
The last question is, one of the things that happens frequently on this commission is that the design team comes in and says, you know, our mechanical units on the roof are only this high, and then the building's built and all of a sudden they're 10 feet higher or 3 feet higher. And I'm wondering if, and that can be for lots of reasons. It needs to be up on the shoring. I can't remember what you call it, or it's a different unit. Yeah, the dunnage, or it's a different unit. It's a more efficient unit. It's greener. You know, they say we selected the greener one and it's higher. Sorry. If you ended up with higher units, what could you do in this design to anticipate that possibility?
I think there's a few things we would carefully look at the screen. So let me go to this elevation if I can. In other words, I'll preface this by saying we went through this very closely with the commission last time, and it didn't just end at design. We ended up walking the streets with staff after the building was built.
I remember that.
And so I am keenly, and I've already advised our team numerous times about what could happen if we don't pay attention here. So a couple things is, if we talk about this being the screen wall relationship to the building, it looks at a certain proportion. If we end up with taller equipment, one of the first things we can do is move that screen wall further in to the interior of the roof, while at the same time making it taller, which would keep this proportion. I think at the end of the
roof plan area to do that.
Yes, we do.
Great, cool.
Yeah, because if we commit to this, we want to be able to own this. We don't want to end up with something that's double this height for some reason.
Great, cool. I think it's a really great project, and I'm also very pleased that you've answered everything that came up in the advisory. I'll let the other commissioners make their comments and questions.
Thank
you. Great. Let's go to Kevin and then Felicia.
Thank you. So I think I have two questions, and I think they're related, so I'll just throw them at you and you can handle them. But one was if there were any significant design changes from the advisory. And my second was, and I think it might be answered, but somewhere around slide 70, you were flipping between cornice line images.
Yes.
If you could go to what you're actually proposing, I would, is this what it is?
Yeah, well, this is what we came in with. I will say that I do appreciate what Commissioner Freeman just said about how this version does accentuate the punch windows at the top, whereas this one, it doesn't necessarily. So I feel like we're going to end up landing here. But these are the reason why we put them side by side is so that we could easily toggle back and forth. And to answer your first question, this was the most significant change from the advisory till now.
Okay, so where you stand is it's going to be one or the other.
Yes, and I'm thinking I'm comfortable here on this one.
Okay, and that's what, slide 73?
73, yes.
Okay. Thank you for numbering the pages. That helps immensely, I have to say.
Yep.
Catherine or Commissioner Hunt, that's all I have.
Oh, you can call me Catherine, Kevin. Thank you. Felicia, comments and questions.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I was not part of the advisory committee, but I will just say that being intimately familiar with the current building, have utilized it many times, all 4 entrances at this point. I can say that I really, really pleased at this iteration. You know, there are very few instances where I think a demolition doesn't create a lot of questions, but given the use, the growth of ARL and just the full range of services that are provided at the space, and knowing the Chandler entrance and the Tremont Street entrance are given equal weight. I think it's a really lovely iteration, and with or without trees, I think it is it's completely designed to respond at a very human scale. So thank you very much.
Mm,
Thank you.
great. I will add my praise to the architecture. It's just outstanding. A great job, Jonathan and team. I am looking forward to the signage package, and I hope that what you're showing here, this sort of silver look, will be what is proposed.
Yeah.
My only comment or question is about, as John intimated, the concrete sidewalk that Tracy mentioned is concerning. And that was on Chandler Street?
Chandler, that's right. It currently exists on Tremont because there's a larger network of it on Tremont. That's actually the current day condition. On Chandler, the current day condition is a full brick sidewalk with tree pits that have just open exposed mulch in the pits, and they're lined by granite curbs.
Right. So isn't the policy or protocol to replace brick with brick?
Is that directed to me or to your?
I think it's directed to anybody who wants to answer, and I think John Freeman has a response.
I knew you were going to pull me back into this.
Oh, yeah. Join the fun.
The brick sidewalks in the south end are not historic.
Right.
They were a later addition, and as such, they're not technically part of the historic district. Brick sidewalks are often maligned by accessibility proponents, but as every good landscape architect and civil engineer knows, there's nothing inherent in the brick. It's the way you install it that makes it accessible or not.
Exactly.
I think.
Excuse me, John, what were the sidewalks? If they weren't brick, what were they?
I think they were cobblestones, mud,
Oh, yes,
brick.
cobblestone.
I mean, I think probably there was some. I think there was a whole mix of messy things.
Yeah, well, they certainly weren't concrete.
No, they definitely weren't concrete. I don't think we can require, I mean, Joe is here, and I remember those discussions, Gabby or Rachel. I don't think we can require a brick sidewalk, but we can certainly say it's our preference to see a fully accessible brick sidewalk. But I was hoping, I don't remember, Mr. Amadeo would be the one who would know all the details.
Well, I would encourage anyone who has a problem with brick sidewalks to look at Massachusetts Avenue. I was part of that task force when they redid the sidewalks, and those are some of the smoothest sidewalks in the city. And they were properly installed, and they've been just a dream to experience. And for a city that's supposed to be historic and attract people to our historic environment here, it's a darn shame to take out that fabric. And by now the brick sidewalk is historic, if you look at it that way, and replace it with crummy concrete that gets abused and cracked and left and then filled in with tar or whatever, blacktop to fill in the cracks. It's just a shame. And so I really hope you'll reconsider that, because the project is so lovely and done so well and is so substantive that I just hope you'll reconsider that.
This is Rachel. I just want to say that so in the standards and criteria under public areas, sidewalks and curbs, granite and brick are preferred materials, but concrete walking surface may be allowed after review. Existing brick sidewalks must be repaired and restored. New or repaired concrete sidewalks must be approved for color or tone and may not be patched with asphalt. Just wanted to clarify what the standards and criteria
So
say.
my question was, are these are existing concrete, right?
No, they're
This is
brick.
no, it's not existing concrete, it's existing brick. I can flip back to a photograph. And just Catherine, we hear you loud and clear. So we will definitely take it under advisement. Your point does not go unheard for sure. This is
Oh,
the,
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
this is the condition on Tremont Street,
Yeah.
just for everyone's reference. So you
Right.
can see a brick apron with a concrete sidewalk. And again, that's part of a larger network all up and down
Yeah.
Tremont.
Right.
And that's a better shot of it. I will go back to the view, see if I can find the view along Chandler. So that's the beginning of Chandler. The Chandler Tremont Plaza is to the left, and then that is the balance of Chandler Street. Get this out of the way. And then that's probably the best shot we have. So this is right in front of the site. All brick sidewalks with granite curbs lining the
And that's
trees.
clearly collapsing.
It's collapsing in a treacherous walk.
Yeah.
Well, it is, especially if you trip over that tree pit, you know.
Right.
But
does-
isn't what Rachel just read the guideline that a brick sidewalk has to be replaced with brick? What did I miss? Oh, here's Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, Joe Cornish, Director of Design Review. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you. Usually, when we work with a Public Improvement Commission, it's replacing brick with brick, but usually the wire cut brick, so we don't have the issue of the paving, heaving, and so that, I mean, that would be certainly our recommendation would be for it to be a brick in kind, but with wire cut brick.
Right.
And it's an asphaltic sub base to keep it from doing this.
Right.
So is it clear then that this has to be a brick sidewalk? I don't want to have any doubt, you know, once we
Right.
conclude the hearing.
I mean, Bob and Edward, feel free to speak up, but I mean, you know, I think it's, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I think the best you've been very clear, and I'm just unclear on what the process is from here, whether we come back with some changes anyway. I would love some time just to understand better what the wire cut brick is, what it costs, exactly what the limits of our work are. But yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal. And if it's important, we will absolutely, we'll come back to you with the intention of doing it unless for some reason we find it to be impossible, if that's fair to say right now.
Great.
Well, the guidelines say, am I correct, Rachel, that it has to be brick?
Yeah, so the guidelines say existing brick sidewalk must be repaired and restored.
In that case, not even a question.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think it's important to make that clear. Thank you. Are we finished then with commissioner comments and questions? Joe, thank you for your input. Did you want to add anything further?
You're doing a great job as chair. I'll add that.
Agreed.
Thank you. That's so kind. I so appreciate that.
And it looks like a great project to me. So congratulations, everyone. I think it's going to be a great addition.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, this is fabulous. I mean, indeed, congratulations all around. It's such a complete and in-depth presentation and project. You've considered all these, just everything. It's kind of, for me personally, it's kind of a shame that presence on Chandler Street isn't repeated on Tremont. You kind of want that same, I don't know. It's hard to express it, but it just seems that Tremont has more traffic and Chandler
I hear
doesn't.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the way it is, and we'll just have to encourage people to walk around and look at the entire building.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, well, are we ready for a motion?
I think we need two motions, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
you guys need a motion to demolish and then a motion about the design of the building.
so I'll make a motion to allow demolition of the existing buildings as proposed. They're not contributing buildings, maybe nice buildings, but they're not contributing in the strict sense of the historic South End. And so I'm proposing to allow the demolition.
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion. It's been seconded.
Do
Is
we
there-
need public
I think-
comment on that?
Well, I think we have to do it separately
Yeah, let me just
Do
pull
it.
up.
because we don't want, yes, I think it's better to do it separately.
Technically, we can't make a motion on the second part without a vote on the first.
Correct.
Well, so we'll get public comment, we'll take a vote, and then we'll proceed, right? Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Do we see any hands or
I
Sarah?
don't see any hands raised, and I don't believe we received any written public comment.
Okay, fantastic. So we have a motion. It's been seconded. We shall vote. Kevin,
Aye.
Felicia,
Aye.
John,
Aye,
and the chair votes aye as well. So that motion, that is passed for the demolition. Now we'll move on to the new project, the new building.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal with several provisos. The first proviso is that as many as existing trees are retained as possible, and that through the construction process of protecting the trees and retaining them, that staff be consulted and any issues identified as early as possible. Second proviso is that the mechanical equipment be mocked up as soon as there is a possibility in the process of construction, meaning that the building is topped out, and that staff be included in that, and that the visibility be inspected from all different angles, and the possible adjustments to the screen wall be made at that time, so it's done early enough. Third proviso is that staff be included and can choose to include commissioners with any mock-ups for materials or other construction on the site, and that they be notified sufficiently ahead of time. And the last proviso is that at 75% or somewhere in that range, 75, 80% completion of documents be given to staff for review of details, and they, of course, can choose to come back to ask you back to the commission or to ask commissioners questions in that process.
Great. Do we have a second?
Actually, I'm so sorry. Staff would like to interject. Do you guys want to say anything about a signage master plan?
Oh, of course. Thank you. Yes,
Uh,
that a signage master plan be submitted by when? With the 75%, Rachel?
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense.
Okay. Signage master plan, absolutely, and it include all exterior signage and site signage, even, and some proposed possibilities, should you find that you need more wayfinding.
Do we have to be specific about the brick sidewalk?
I was
in the
going to
motion?
add that.
Yeah.
But yes, you can, I'll say amendment to accepted. I think we know where you stand. Where we stand.
So brick
So that
sidewalk
would
on
be
the Chandler.
5 and
side.
6, right?
Yes.
And then the last one was, do you guys need to pick which of the preferred facade? So like page 73, I think it was, Kevin, you called out. Slide 73.
I wasn't going to include it as part of a motion, but I defer to others that are more experienced.
I think we can ask them to look at it from design, and I mean, my preference was, I stated the brick. But they can always, if they're going to do something different than the brick, they can come back to the convention. How about that?
Second.
Thank you.
Great, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Members of the public will now have an opportunity, pardon me, to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Sarah, do you see anybody for public comment? I don't see any.
Yeah, I don't see any hands raised, and I don't believe we received any written public comment.
Interesting. Wow. Then we will have a vote on the motion. Felicia,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. So the application is approved with these provisos, and the motion for demolition of the existing building is also approved. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very,
Very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you all again.
Yeah,
Come back anytime.
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Such a complete presentation. Wonderful. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, that concludes the design review. We have administrative review. Has everyone had a chance to review that? If so, we're ready for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the administrative review as recommended.
Second.
And we'll take a vote. John,
Aye.
Felicia,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
chair also votes aye. So the administrative review is approved. Thank you. Now, do you want to lead this discussion, Rachel, Gabby, or Joe?
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh.
All right. Well, again, I'm
The
Joe
guest
Cornish,
star.
the Director of Design Review for the Boston Landmarks Commission. Kevin, great to see you. Welcome. This is the first hearing I've seen you at, and Felicia, it's the first hearing I've seen you at for the South End. So it's great. As you know, we are, for the first time, and I don't know when, almost all of our vacancies on the South End Commission are filled, and Peter Sanborn will be soon sworn in at the end of this month. So we'll have a full slate
wow.
of commissioners. So that is really exciting. And
What?
So for the other commissioners, Peter Sanborn was once before a commissioner and was a great contributor here.
Peter's on the call, on the Zoom call. Excellent. Welcome back, Peter. Thank you, Joe, for letting us know that. That's great.
Yes, yeah, well, that's great news. And even better news, now we can wrap up a lot of these loose ends because we haven't been able to update our standards and criteria because we haven't had a quorum of commissioners to do that. So we need 5 commissioners at a hearing to be able to update our standards and criteria. And there are 2 time sensitive, I would say, issues that we really want to address before we take a look at revising all of the standards and criteria. And those are outdoor dining guidelines and updated window guidelines. So I think probably the most straightforward would be our outdoor dining guidelines. As many of you know, during COVID, we saw a lot of outdoor dining popping up all over the city. And, it really became very popular. I enjoyed going to them. I still enjoy going to them. And it's become a program that specifically in public areas will be made permanent. And because we don't have any guidelines for outdoor dining in the South End, they have been exempt from our review. So when this outdoor dining after COVID was being thought of as a pilot program and a permanent program, the Back Bay Architectural District Commission had pretty robust outdoor dining guidelines for private properties. So all the outdoor dining that you see on Newberry Street and Boylston Street had pretty clear guidelines. So what we wanted to do was to extend those to the outdoor dining that you see in the parking areas that are come up annually. And we worked with the mayor's office on sort of a pilot program with the Back Bay to review those on a staff level, so they wouldn't actually require design review applications, but at a staff level, we review the licenses as well as the fire department does, accessibility commission does, all these other commissions that require review them, and we just sort of sign off and say, yes, these proposed installations meet our guidelines. So we did send these around to you just for, hopefully you had a chance to take a quick look at them. We're not going to vote on them tonight. Really, we're just presenting this, explaining the background, why we're bringing this to you. At first, we thought about just doing the outdoor dining in the parking spaces, but since you don't have guidelines for private property, it seemed like, why don't we just mimic and do what they do in the Back Bay? And it's been a successful program in the Back Bay. So pretty much these mirror the Back Bay guidelines. We did make a few changes to reflect the South End. And I think, Catherine, you sent us some copy edits, which were helpful. So we've already included those in the new draft. But I think probably the most important thing to keep in mind when outdoor dining is installed in these parking spaces, they do require a boundary or a barricade. And that's when you see the Jersey barriers being used. And, some of them are not covered or concealed. Some of them are concealed nicely with wood enclosures. So in the Back Bay, what we decided to do was to require that when Jersey barriers are required, they are enclosed in some kind of wood covering and that they be painted. We can't have them painted black or really a gray color. They do have to have some kind of contrast with the paving at night. So, in traffic, people can see that there is a barrier if you're driving along. So that's been successful. We've also included planter boxes, lighting. You're not allowed to put signage on these barricades. And, I think it's been a success. My goal would be, if we could adopt these in February and look at 2025 as sort of a transition period. We know there are going to be some people who have already had these installations that are going to be putting in their installations that they did last year. But I think our work this year, after these are adopted, will be to get the word out that they exist and then hopefully get everyone in line for 2026.
Joe, may I ask a question?
Of course.
So you mentioned parking spaces. What exactly are those? Where are those located? Because I'm thinking about, the whole brouhaha in the North End about on the street and so on. And these guidelines say they can't be in, oh, wait a minute. So seasonal outdoor, including.
Yeah, we have two separate, so there's one for public property, and then the last section is specifically for public property. So that would be the parking spaces.
Oh, so there are places where these outdoor dining areas are actually on the street.
Yes, and right now they're in the South End. They're not reviewed by the commission, so we have no review of them right now.
Wow.
So there are a few, there have been a few on Columbus, some restaurants on Columbus, and I know near Tremont Street, the St. Cloud Hotel building, I think there are some around there.
So that is permitted.
Yes, yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's through, yeah,
allowed.
through a license, yeah, so, we don't grant the licenses, that is going through another agency. We would just be one agency that would have
Okay.
review authority over it. So again, the fire department, transportation reviews these.
So this will give
accessibility.
us some say in how they're,
Yeah, we're looking for consistency, really.
okay, great, thank you.
I have one question about lighting.
Yes.
Was there a, I think it's great that you put the color in there. Is there a restriction, or should there be a restriction on how bright? Because I know that in some places, owners have turned up their lighting quite bright, and it starts to intrude on the neighborhood as well as. Should there be?
We could put that in there. I think usually they are dimmable. So, I think we can put those in the guidelines. The hard thing would be in how we enforce it. So I think we could, in the beginning of the dining season, do a review of how bright they are, but it would be hard for us later on in the season to go out and monitor how bright they might get.
No, but just at least so people are aware that they are not supposed to light it up like a market, say.
Yeah, and I think so, and the lighting is really limited to the string lighting.
Okay.
This is interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, John. So the last sentence here, approved string lighting must be removed at the end of the city mandated outdoor dining season for the South End. Now, I guess I can answer my own question, which is coming, because right here in my chair, I can lean over and see all these string lights that are on. And I wonder if that's permitted because it's ink block and it's in between two restaurants. So it's not technically public property. It's within confines of the ink block. Do you know?
So this would not,
and I'm not complaining about it. I'm just asking.
Right. This would not apply to the protection area. So this would be.
Oh, of course. I see. Okay.
But I mean, that being said, if that was a situation, say on Tremont Street in the district, I believe maybe if you go back to what we say for private property, I think we require them to be removed on private property as well at the end of the season.
Removed, completely removed, or just turned off?
What does it say there?
I'm thinking of a location on Columbus where they're.
Yeah, again, right now they're exempt in the South End. I do know
people won't want to.
Newberry, yeah, of course they want them because it's like signage. I think on Newberry Street, people have left them up. I mean, it is hard to monitor unless we're actively going.
If you talk to an engineer, not an architect, about this, he will tell you that you have to have some very substantial anchors. So when that hurricane shows up, your lights don't go flying off and, become a liability. So people will want to not have to remove them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. What was the other thing? Oh, holiday lights. We're gonna have people. Could there be an exception for, the weeks around Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah or whatever? Because I'm going to contradict myself here, because very often, it's sometimes that weather's nice, it's snowy, maybe it's warmer, and there's enough people out that they want to have the streets open. But the other thing is, the reason I asked about the lighting levels is that people would also put out holiday markets, crafts fairs and that kind of thing, where they want to crank the light up.
Mm-hmm.
So just those questions, once we start to regulate this, maybe that'll never come up, but.
Well, this is limited to outdoor dining, so.
Well, in their dining location, they put a.
Right. Right. So, so it would be an outdoor dining patio or an outdoor dining area in a public parking spot. We don't get involved with holiday decorations. I mean, if something is up year round, and it doesn't comply with these guidelines and it's not part of outdoor dining, then I don't know how much review we would have over that. I guess it would depend on how they are installed and if it was permanently installed versus temporary.
I'm just worried about people starting, oh, these lights are so bright, they're in my bedroom window, but all of a sudden we have dozens of violations coming in. I don't know.
Yeah, we say dimmable here, dimmable. So maybe we say white or off-light lights that are dimmable and just leave it and get rid of the are preferred.
Okay.
I might even be so bold as to say that I think like the general concern around like, oh, just want to make sure people's like holiday decorations are not weaponized against them. I think that probably falls more relevantly under just like the regular temporary, that we wouldn't be reviewing them anyway.
Well, I'm just saying if, because we now regulate this, any complaint somebody has is going to come to you.
Totally. I think it's going to help that this is under specifically outdoor dining. So I guess maybe if someone has like a really bright Santa Claus, they keep up way too. You can cross that bridge.
Well, and we see them on roof decks and we don't regulate them on roof decks.
Yeah.
Really.
No, I mean, I have no problem with any of it, but I can imagine it becoming something that needs but I do think the anchoring of it and the permanency of it, people will not want to remove them if they put in a substantial something to think about. There's something we're doing something outside my office right now. I mean, that's supposed to be going in, and that's the issue: is the anchors have to be really substantial.
Right, and we don't want them to be sagging, and I mean that's one of the big problems we see on Newbury Street. That by the end of the summertime, they're pretty much sagged and.
There's a term for that from the wind loads.
Yeah.
But they can also get blown off, and anyway. So, but I like your idea of do it for a year and see where we stand.
Yeah, and we can always revise these too. I think this is a good starting point. And again, we've had good luck in the Back Bay with these. So I think, again, our goal is think about it. Any comments or questions you can think of between now and the February hearing, send them to us. We'll post these online so members of the public can have, a look at it. And then ideally we'd like to vote and adopt them at the February hearing.
Oh, okay. That's great, Joe. Do you want to move on to Windows?
Windows, yes.
Sorry, I just have a couple quick.
Oh, sure. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin.
Oh, that's fine. I'm sure they're quick. So one is, I know you keep referencing the Back Bay. Is this essentially verbatim language?
Pretty much. We did, I forget exactly what we changed, but we made a few changes, I think mostly to the public areas that didn't make sense for the south end.
Okay. And I can probably find that online, but the second question, and this is just out of pure ignorance, as you said, I'm relatively new. So this commission has authority to adopt/enforce these guidelines?
Yes, and that's why we needed the quorum of 5 people, that you five members. So, the past 2 years, I think we've only had 3 members, 3 dynamic members. We haven't been able to adopt these.
Does this also have to get approved by BLC?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't think that would be a problem, just timing.
Right, but and again, I think there is. I feel like we have a larger project in the future to really look at all of the guidelines and update them. And but these are 2 time-sensitive ones that we need to address now.
And my last question anyway is the proposed language, which I think makes sense after a review earlier this week, but I didn't have time to do it, but I was going to try to compare it to our existing guidelines around public areas. And has that been done to make sure that there's no conflict between the public areas section of the existing guidelines?
I did take a look at them again today and I didn't see any conflict. I think we talk about street furniture there,
Yeah.
but we don't I don't see anything about outdoor dining that's mentioned there.
No, there's nothing about dining, but just there are guidelines about types of materials and things like that. So,
and I don't think we have anything inconsistent here with that.
okay.
That brings up one little question that we used to review this, not knowing that we actually had no purview. And where we ran into problems is when we said that they should be permanent. Well, Catherine, you remember. Some other applicants would then make an application to the city to, core into the sidewalk and would get turned down. So is the city, I mean, this was 10 years ago, but is that something that
so I think if someone was doing outdoor dining on their creating a dining patio that doesn't exist, they'll have to go to zoning to get that before they would come to us.
Oh,
so they get kicked to the city anyway?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
All right. If that's we can move to window.
did you have anything, Felicia, or anything else, Kevin?
No, these seem fine, and having the 12 months to sort of let it play out, I think will be useful.
It's hard to think about outdoor dining tonight, but
especially tonight.
Those days will be they're not far away. Okay.
My only other, and I apologize for these like process
no,
questions.
please, no, and if you hear any, think of anything else in the meantime, let us know, but please go ahead. That's what we're here for.
So just, procedurally, the goal is to get it passed the next month, which I understand and makes sense. Is there engagement of like outdoor dining establishments ahead of passage? I know you're a small staff and there's not a whole lot, you don't have a lot of bandwidth, but just as a new person, just wondering how that works.
Yeah, so we're all good questions, Kevin.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're working with the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. So, I will update them that this is our plan for February. I mean, they know that we've been working on this, and we worked with them on the Back Bay, on adapting the Back Bay language. So and again, what we will do is put this language out to make sure it's available, on the city's website. I think, what we could possibly do if there seems to be a lot of public feedback, maybe we just adopt the public areas for now and we can hold off on the private areas, because the public areas there aren't many of them. And, again, right now we don't have any review power over those. So, I mean, we could even start with that and then look towards adopting the guidelines for private property as well.
I mean, I'm comfortable with what you've done and the team has done. I just, I'm aware that because there were no guidelines before, it'll be a change for folks. So just try to make sure that we include as many voices as possible.
Yeah, and again, and I think that's, that's why I see this coming year as, a transition kind of pilot program for us. And I think, for the permanent installations, we would probably look at only reviewing new ones at this point that would be coming in. So if there is a new one on private property coming in, that we'd be reviewing those. The ones on public property get reviewed every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so windows are our next area that we would like to make some revisions to the guidelines. And probably 3 years ago or more, we had an interpretation of our window guidelines by the law department, specifically related to our review of the replacement of curved sash windows. And I know this is something anyone that is familiar with the South End knows that that's one of the most important character defining features of the row houses in the South End are the curved sash windows. So the law department had recommended that we clarify our language to make it clear when existing wood curved sash windows can be replaced. Right now, they felt that our language is currently weak, and there's a whole interpretation of should and shall, and I think the commissioners, Catherine and John, probably remember this issue that we had with the replacement of curved sash windows. So the recommendation of the law department was to be very specific, to have a percentage of how much of the wood sash would be deteriorated before we would allow it to be replaced. So we've incorporated that language. We looked at the current window guidelines. We picked out what we felt were the important goals, and then we tried to simplify it as much as possible. But I think we've had a policy of being pretty strict about requiring curved sash windows to be preserved whenever possible. And I think we want to make that more clear in these guidelines. So that's really the background of what we've done here and why we're proposing to change this. Again, it's taken us a while to get here because we haven't had the quorum of commissioners to adopt new guidelines. So I know it's pretty dense. Again, I think review this over the next month. If you have questions or comments between the next hearing, I don't anticipate that we would probably adopt these in February. I think there's going to be more feedback from John Amadeo, who's not here. I'd like to have feedback from him and certainly from Peter Sanborn when he's on the commission. But this is something that's been on our back burner that we haven't been able to move forward because we haven't had a quorum of commissioners.
Joe, the current standards versus these that are being updated, how will they apply over what might be the next 12 months or so to sort of projects that are already in process?
Yeah. So I would say, so again, it's related to existing wood historic windows and when they need to be repaired and when they can be replaced. And I think related to curved sash wood sash windows, if they're being replaced with wood curved sash windows,
then it's fine.
We have to allow it. Yes.
Right. It's really in the instance if you want to replace an existing curved sash wood window with another material.
Right, or like right now, you cannot replace a curved sash window with a flat window. That you can't do now.
Right, so the profile is important. The profile and the material.
Right, but if the current existing historic wood sash window is repairable,
that's preferable.
We would want that, and we would recommend that, but we really don't have the power to enforce that. So as long as someone is replacing that with a curved wood sash window, the law department has interpreted that can be done.
That repair is
that replacement can be done and not repair. Okay. As long as it's wood and curved sash.
Gotcha.
Now, under the current regulations.
Now, the current legal interpretation.
So this would mean that we would, if they have to meet this 50%.
Yes, yeah. So that's the new language. So we're saying, and that's, staff goes out and we look at it and say, most of this window, more than 50% of this window, the wood feature, the wood elements of the window are deteriorated.
I had two quick comments. Being an architect who deals with this in other places many times. First is that who determines 50% would be important. Is it as determined by staff? Does it, or?
I would say by staff, yes. And currently staff does go out and do site visits to look.
And they do the best, but we also have the policy that they have to have letters from two window restorers saying they can't be restored.
But so that's not in our current guidelines.
Right, it was a policy that we developed to try to take some
Right.
pressure off.
Right. So I think, I think if we want to include that should be written in these guidelines. But I do have to say, if we do adopt that in these guidelines, that means if someone has 2 letters that says they're not repairable, we have to honor that, and we can't say,
Yeah.
"Well, wait a minute."
And
We
then,
want
I
to
guess the
go out
idea,
and look for ourselves.
Yeah.
It became very clear that there were a couple who were willing to say any window couldn't be restored, and
Well, that's exactly right, and that's the flaw of that whole idea.
but the
Well, and I
other
think
side
now-
of it is that if you put it on Rachel and Gabby, the owners are going to be yelling at them and saying it's not 50%. I measure it this way, and
right. And is it 50% per window or in the aggregate? Because there
See,
could potentially be a replacement and, there's not a saying.
say.
Yeah.
It has to be per window, right?
We have it in there specified as specifically the window sash itself. So someone can't just say, look at this window, it's mostly glass and it's all broken. So it's specifically the sash.
Yeah.
The other comment I had is
Original or historic sash.
years ago we had an applicant, I just can't remember his name, actually do a drawing of a south end window for us with all the proper dimensions, and we've used that off and on for years. And I think it's under the picture's worth 1,000 words. I think that's really useful because it shows, it has a dimension that shows a 7/8 inch mutton barn. You can't say, well, that's not, it's right there, and so on. So it might be worth including a diagram in this, because people argue about that stuff. They'll argue about what is the brick mold, what is a jam stop, and how big that is, and we also like to use as the rule of thumb the fact that you can't reduce the profile of the glass, because that's kind of what sets the whole dimension of the window.
Okay.
And I think about, is there a way that we could include that? So I guess I have 3 comments, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, send us your comments and
Sorry,
and again, I anticipate this is a more complicated and more, it has a lot of, I want to say moving parts, but there's a lot to the window replacements that needs consideration.
And this is a great start, I have to say. It really.
And we really want to make it simple too. So that's our goal too, to make it clear so it's easy for people to understand when they're reading it. And just to go back to the letters from the window specialists, it has been hard for people to find people to come out and assess windows.
Yeah.
We've heard that. So that again is another drawback to that requirement.
Well, I think that's a good change to eliminate that.
Get rid of the letters.
Yeah. I do, and I think we're going to have a lot of, we've already seen it, the whole issue of energy conservation and so on, that's going to all come up, and
Right.
I just wonder, do we have to move in a different direction on these windows because of the concerns? And I don't
With the specialized code, almost all windows need to be triple glazed, but there is an exception for historic, and this isn't a historic district. So
I also want to ask about, sorry, Kevin, storm windows. And so is it what we're saying, that you can only have storm windows if you put them on the inside of your?
oh no, we don't want to do that. Does it say
Oh,
that?
no, it doesn't say that. Storm windows are exempt and they're going to remain exempt.
Yeah, storm
They're
windows
just,
are.
we've put in there some things to help just suggest,
Okay, I just saw that. Where is that? About the storm windows?
MFC used to require that about 20 years ago, and all of the newly restored windows rotted. They need to be on the outside. Yeah.
Well, can we find that in here? It says that. I just read it somewhere.
Oh.
It defines it as an acceptable action. It doesn't, it's not a requirement, is my understanding.
Yeah, it's the weatherization of existing historic windows, installation of storm window panes on the interior of the window, invisible films and caulking around the window are acceptable actions. But I think the language about storm windows, Rachel and Gabby, is that under the exemptions section of the?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's under the exemptions section, but if it makes sense, we could repeat it here.
It's a third sentence from the bottom, Catherine, if you're
Thank you. Third sentence from the bottom.
Installation of storm window panes on the interior of the
Under
window.
weatherization.
Right.
Weatherization of existing-
Section 3.
Oh, I see. Got it. Got it. Installation of storm window panes.
Sure.
Acceptable. Oh, I see. Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
But we don't want to, we do want them to put it on the outside.
Okay, good. Thank
Is
you.
there any language about, they should be low profile or something like that? So we don't just get a lot of white Harvey storm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something, I mean, we can review storm window, right now they're exempt. So, that is something that we could add in here.
Hmm.
Kevin, you're so patient.
Oh, that's okay. I'm reading it for 1,000th time, but a couple quick questions or comments. Under section 2, about midway through, the commission will require the use of wood brick mold painted the same color as the metal sash, etc. And then it says where absolutely necessary. I think that that's potentially an area to define a little further. I mean, I like that we say 50%. In my, again, limited experience, I think the 50% is more clear than the previous guidelines. So if there's a way, and maybe there isn't, there's a lot of experts on this call, but if there's a way to define absolutely necessary a little bit more. And then my second comment is couple sentences down, it is encouraged that wood trim, etc. Just the it is encouraged language is also very,
Yeah. Right.
We should be more firm, I think.
Yeah.
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 Good point.
I always tell people when a developer sees, like in all these new zoning coming out, it's preferred that you do that. A developer looks at that and he says, oh, I don't have to.
Right.
Right.
Just
Right.
a suggestion at that point, John.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think my only other one was, and I thought it was where you were going, Felicia, but if I have two front windows and one is 80%, deteriorated beyond repair, but the other is 60%, can I only replace the one? I thought that was where you were going with the aggregate.
Well, it was, because, you're wanting to have an even elevation.
Right.
No matter how hard you try, you're going to be able to tell those are two different windows,
Right.
unless you're very far away. And so that really was where I was going.
And
But
so,
I
I mean,
follow-
oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if it's like a per window sort of situation. I mean, so if in this hypothetical you have a window that's 80% deteriorated and then a window that's 60% deteriorated, both of those numbers are over 50.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Well, yeah, but what if one is 80?
70 and 30.
40?
You have to go 30, yeah, or something.
Well, if the other one's under 50, I mean,
Yeah.
Under 50.
I think that's when we have you scheduled for design review when you come in front of the commission.
It should probably, I think where Kevin was going was it should say per window or something.
Yeah, a little clarity there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our intent was for it to be per window.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, our goal, I think the goal is to preserve the historic fabric and to preserve as many of those historic curved stats as we can.
It has to be per window because if you turn it around the other way, you have one window that's 90% deteriorated. There's only like one mutton hanging there. That's all that's left. But the rest of them are great.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't work. Right.
So obviously it has to be one window per window.
So we all have a chance to take another look at these and provide comments. We don't have to catch everything tonight.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and for the windows, we could even, I mean, depending on, let's take a look at it over the next month. We can have another discussion in February, and then we could always have a special meeting just to review the window language if we want to. Again, I think the outdoor dining is more timely just because we know people are going to be planning
Right.
to do that.
Right. Well, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for
Good
having
work.
me.
This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So that concludes the guideline review. Ratification of the meeting minutes. I can say I read them and approved them, but everybody else, do we have a motion?
Second.
Sorry, Kevin. Okay, great. Have a motion. Let's have an oral vote. Aye.
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 Great, thank you. And what's next? Staff updates? Yes. Well, we have a major staff update.
Yes.
Mr. Peter Stanborn.
Yeah.
Yes, as Joe shared, Peter will be joining the commission. He's scheduled for his not signing.
Being sworn in,
Sworn
but
in.
he'll be
There's-
able to join us for the commissioner training ahead of the February hearing as well. So you'll get to hug, cry.
Oh, great. Wow. In person, an in-person meeting. I can't even believe it.
Yes, we'll send out another reminder about that later this week. We are still planning on having the South End Commissioner training. It'll be a really nice opportunity for all of you to meet each other. For those of you who haven't met staff yet, to meet staff. We don't anticipate it taking too long. And then we would also like to encourage you all, if your schedules allow, to maybe try to have dinner or something like that together afterwards. So just
That's exactly what I was thinking, Rachel. That's a great idea. And remind us of the date right now.
I believe it's February 3rd, which is a Monday. So right the day.
3rd, 5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah, I think it's 5:30 to 7:30 is what we said. And hopefully the actual training part won't take too long. We'll have copies of the handbook for you guys. And Gabby and I will provide light snacks.
Oh, wait a minute. So the actual training is not the full 2 hours?
Joe, do you think it will take 2 hours? I think we'll find out. Yeah, Joe's shaking his head.
I think you allotted the 2-hour time frame to reserve the room. I mean, I would say an hour to an hour and a half at the most. But if there are certain topics or questions that you want to have addressed, let us know that so we can, we'll be ready and prepared to focus on those things.
Yeah, that would be really helpful because we'll put together an agenda for the meeting in advance. So if you have something of interest you'd like to discuss, please let us know. Ideally before the end of the month.
Gabby, who's behind you?
No one.
You have a baby cat.
Oh. Rigatoni.
Okay.
Started,
so if we want to do some sort of dinner or something, then
no
we have to
rigatoni allowed.
We have to get that rolling.
Yeah, we can. Well, like I said, I'll send out a reminder about it at the end of this week. And then maybe in that email chat, you guys could see who's available and interested and put some thoughts out there for dinner. And Gabby and I can help make the reservation.
The place we went last time was great, I thought. What was that? Where's that called?
Oh,
we went to
SRV. Yeah, SRV was really great.
Yeah, could be a South End, could be anything.
Yeah.
We dared to go into the South End.
That's how I feel every time I do a site visit. I think that'll be really fun.
Mr.
And
Amadeo will probably have an opinion also on restaurants.
I think he would.
Well, the only thing about that is we're going to be at City Hall and then we'd have to get all the way out there.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
all the way. It's like
Well, you just jump on the orange line and there you go.
Actually.
State Street to, okay, we can think about that.
We can discuss in the email comment thread later this week.
Yeah. Now, am I correct in remembering that all commission hearings were going to go back to being in person in 2025?
I
Which
hope
is,
so.
we are.
That's still unclear. Right now, the mandate that allows for virtual hearings is extended through March of 2025. We'll probably find out around early March, hopefully, what they're planning on doing moving forward. And once we know that,
It's the
we'll let you
same
guys
thing every year, Catherine. You know, they have to renew it every single year and we never
Yeah.
find out until the last minute. So
Yep, yep. Okay, is there any remaining item on our agenda or do we adjourn? Are we
Adjourn.
ready to adjourn?
You're welcome
So
to adjourn.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Great. So we adjourn. Happy New Year, everyone. This is
Happy
great.
New Year. Thank you,
New
Joe.
Year.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank Abby and Rachel and Sarah. You guys
Yes,
did great work.
everybody,
Great
great work.
support.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
In person soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.